NBC Television.
This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Welcome back, everybody, to Dead Air. Woo! So, last week we had a little blast from the past, and this week we are going to continue that. If you're new here, my name is Siena Anzaldua. I am your horror host here at Dead Air, where I talk about all things spooky, scary, and happening around the Central Valley. So, this week we are going to begin our deep dive into someone who is incredibly important to the horror genre, especially during the 80s. Yes, that's right, folks. We are talking about Mr. David Cronenberg, and I can't wait. These are some of my favorite movies of all time, and you'll see why. Because as a gore fanatic, you know what? I kind of like that. A gore fanatic, a gore and a horror fanatic. That's me. I really just can't get over how amazing these movies are. And so this week, we're talking about 1981's Scanners. Yes, I had to start with this one, guys. And I mean, it is so good. Now, if you haven't watched Scanners, please go watch it. Come back. I'll still be here waiting just for you. Okay, so yes, please go watch Scanners, come back, and we can discuss it together. Without further ado, we're going to begin our horror movie summary. Cameron Vale, a troubled drifter plagued by the constant voices of others' thoughts, discovers he is a powerful scanner. A human with extraordinary telepathic and telekinetic abilities. Say that 10 times fast. Recruited by psychologist Dr. Paul Ruth and the security corporation Consec, Vale is trained to control his powers and tasked with stopping Daryl Revick, a rogue scanner leading a violent movement to dominate humanity. As Vale uncovers a conspiracy involving the drug ephemeral, its connection to the creation of scanners, and Consec's hidden agenda, he joins forces with fellow scanner Kim Obrist to expose Revick's plan to create a new generation of psychic superhumans. The conflict culminates in a brutal psychic battle where Vale learns that Revick is his brother.
You were my brother, Anakin!
And that both were unknowingly created through their father's experiments. In the climactic showdown, Vale defeats Revick by transferring his consciousness into his brother's body, sacrificing his own physical form to stop Revick's plan for world domination. Domination. Now we're on to Siena's thoughts. We've got Siena's thoughts. Whether you like them or not, we've got Siena's thoughts. That's right. My thoughts on this movie are Scanners, to me, is the perfect blend of sci-fi and horror. But then with every Cronenberg movie, you also get the amazing perfection that is body horror. And these practical effects are so incredible. And we'll talk about more in fun facts about these practical effects. But Scanners is a movie, 1981, just starting the new decade of the 80s, and you come out with this amazing movie, okay? I love this movie for a lot of different reasons. I love this movie because, again, the practical effects are absolutely freaking timeless, okay? The explosion of the guy's head within the first, 10 minutes of the movie, I think I clocked it at 6. Actually, the fact that they were able to do that so beautifully.
I'm Michael Jordan. Stop it. Get some help.
Is so cool. But I feel like that scene gets a lot of recognition. One of my actually absolute favorite scenes with the practical effects is the ending when Revik and Vale are battling, and they find out that they're Vale finds out that they're brothers, and they have to fight each other in order to survive. And that scene is gore on a different level, is body horror on a different level. And I love it because it's like, it just shows something so much more visceral than anything else in this movie, to be honest, because it's a battle against brother and brother, and good versus evil, but also not necessarily, I don't want to say he's completely evil, but he is, but like an understandable evil, because he has, Revik has sort of been isolated, outcast by the security company, and so it's sort of a, what else could he have done type of thing. So I think that is amazing. I also think that just the storyline is amazing as well. I think it is so different, and it hits on so many different aspects within this decade that are so prominent. And I think that, to me, is also one thing that really makes this movie great. So you get, like, again, you get this theme of evolution versus humanity, where you see that Dr. Ruth believes scanners are really the next stage of evolution. And this more raises questions about, okay, is this really progress? And is this progress good? Or if it's like, okay, we made progress, but at what cost?
What did it cost?
Why are we making so much progress, and are we doing it for the right reasons, and what's coming out of this progress? Because really, you get the loss of compassion, of morality, and of course of free will, because you are making these scanners willy-nilly. You're not giving people a choice whether to have these scanners be made, or having these babies, giving these babies parents the choice to have a child scanner. So I think another really good and powerful scene to me is when Kim is in the doctor's office, and they're trying to they're seeking out this doctor to find out what this drug is being used for. And she's in the waiting room, and there's a pregnant woman in front of her at a different chair, and the baby is scanning her. And you can tell it's just like out of control, and she's being scanned, and it's just such a visceral scene that I think the actress did such a wonderful job on. You can tell the pain and the hurt and just the realization of what's happening to her. I think that is, all of that is just so good. Yeah, is this movie a little bit corny in the dialogue? Absolutely it is. It's the 80s, guys, come on. But I think that's part of the charm of this movie, is this corniness and this cheesiness, but also the sheer power within the film, within the actual acting of this movie, I think is really cool. So another pretty big theme that I actually really loved, and I love seeing this in a movie, is that nature versus nurture. I think this is such a powerful theme that we get not just in horror, but in all different types of genres of movie, in all different genres. So I think the nature versus nurture, the Cameron and Revik are biological brothers, both having extraordinary abilities, but they are choosing vastly different paths. So it shows that, like, their upbringing, you get Vale, who is sort of defrosted, as Revik says, and Revik was raised. He was raised up in the society to become what he is now. So I think that is really cool and interesting. And like I said, I love that theme within a horror movie, because I think it's a theme that we see all the time out in society, and like what plays a more prominent role. And to me, this is also a really big aspect in criminology. What exactly makes a criminal? Is it their nature, or is it the nurturing that they receive? And me personally, I'm always on the side of, well, it's both. To be honest, is both, because you can have the genetic factors to be criminal, but also it depends on how you're raised. So I think both really play a part, and I enjoy the fact that we see both of these brothers go head to head and show this theme so prominently. So I think one of the biggest aspects in a lot of Cronenberg's films is to create an atmosphere of distrust. So the paranoia and conspiracy in this movie is so prominent, and I love that. Again, here we get a secret organization, hidden agendas, assassinations, and the corporate espionage. And it's really, in this movie, it makes it difficult to figure out who you can trust. And again, it just makes it so powerful again, because this was such a prominent theme within the 80s. You know, you get Watergate, you get all these different scandals and such that, or you're just coming out of Watergate, I don't know off the top of my head, but you get these big aspects of distrust, and having a movie show that and display that so prominently is really cool and really interesting, and sort of brings a more deeper case study on this movie and a lot of Cronenberg's films, especially during the time. So that is one of the aspects that I love so much about this movie. And of course, just to really slam it home how much I love this movie, when it comes to the big fight at the end, you don't see any physical fighting, really. Everything is in the mind. So this movie brought into perspective a different sort of fight, and it's a mental fight. And so you're getting that like a lot of different horror movies focus on physical monsters, whereas Scanners uses the human mind and uses that as a source of your horror, of your power, of the psychic battles that are really represented, and the struggles for identity and dominance and survival. And it really reinforces that idea that most of the time, almost all the time, the biggest battles are what happens internally before they ever become physical. And this movie brings that to the forefront. And I love that. I love that aspect of this movie. I love because there is some physical fighting, there's guns and that kind of thing, but that's never the main plot point. The main plot point is what's happening in your mind, in these people's minds, in these heads, to make them move the way that they do, and at the end, to make Vale the victor. And I think that is so incredible. And of course, we're now on to Siena's Music Mayhem segment. Siena's Music Mayhem segment. Siena's Music Mayhem segment. The composer for this movie is Howard Shore. And so this movie really marked his earliest feature film scores, and it began his long-running creative partnership with David Cronenberg. And so he really focused on electronic and orchestral fusion. So the score is blending those synthesizers with a traditional orchestra and creating that unsettling sound that feels very much scientific and otherworldly, which I think is important and plays such a prominent role in this film and mirrors that theme throughout the movie. So we also get the electronic textures that represents the scanner's psychic abilities, while orchestral passages heighten the suspense and the action. And you can hear that throughout this movie. And I love that. So then we get that backed up with a cold and clinical atmosphere within the score. So rather than relying on more of the memorable melodies again, we are giving the mood through the eerie drones, the dissonant harmonies, and the repetitive motifs. And so this music reinforces the film's themes of experimentation, of paranoia, and of the loss of identity. And I think that is an incredible aspect of this movie that really cements it in horror history. And I love that about this movie. I think that's one of the reasons why it makes it so powerful in the horror genre. Again, to further the score, we also get the psychic battles. Now, this comes with its own score, so it becomes increasingly chaotic. It features the swelling strings, aggressive brass, and the distorted synthesizers, and it pounds that percussion to mirror the invisible mental warfare that I think is, again, incredibly powerful in this movie and makes it that much scarier, that much more eerie, that much more horrifying for us as an audience to witness it. So that minimalism throughout this movie is Shore's really modus operandi, that sparse musical accompaniment for long stretches, and long stretches of silence that he does, I think really just makes it so unsettling and allows the sound design, those organic sounds, to really take precedent over what is being staged. And that to me is one of the key aspects of this movie and one of the things that makes it strong, and not just what you're seeing, but what you're hearing to accompany what you're seeing. So a lot of fans of Shore's later work can also hear the early versions of techniques he would refine in films like The Fly and Dead Ringers, and particularly his use of dark orchestral textures and psychological motifs, which I think is cool. It's like, to me, it's like when you're reading an author's first book and then you go on and you read more and more of that author and you're seeing the similar techniques, but they're becoming stronger, they're becoming a little bit different, and it creates that sense of comfort with the person who creates it, and a sense of pride of like, oh my gosh, look at what they're doing now. I think that is so cool, and one of my favorite aspects about film, about reading, about all this kind of stuff is that progression of these techniques. So I wanted to kind of mention a couple of really memorable moments within this movie. So when it comes to the music and the score. So first, of course, I have to mention it, the head explosion scene. So the score mirrors that scene because as you can tell something is off, something is building, the music does that for us. It eases us into that, okay, I know something is happening, but I don't know what's going to happen. So it eases us into that and is showing us, okay, something's gonna happen. Something's gonna happen. I don't know what's gonna happen. And then it happens. And it makes for that really shocking climax. And it makes it so strong when it comes to watching that on screen and hearing and seeing the differences. Okay, so another scene that really emphasizes these musical moments is, of course, the final duel. So that psychic duel between Vale and Revik, it features the score in a very dramatic way. So you're getting that dissonant orchestral writing and that electronic synthesizer and effects, and it emphasizes the overwhelming psychic power that we're seeing on screen. And it makes that just so much more powerful when you're watching it. And like I said, and I've said it so many times throughout this episode already, but it cements this movie in horror history, and that's why. The score is one of the biggest reasons why. So it's important to have a score that matches what you're seeing on screen. And if it doesn't, it throws us off. So I think that's really cool, and I think that's awesome. And I love seeing that within my movies. It just makes it stronger, and it makes me love it even more. And of course, we now have Siena's Fun Facts. They're fun and they're facts, and you learn a little something. Siena's Fun Facts. Yes. So, fun fact number 1. After several failed attempts using conventional pyrotechnics, the effects team packed a fake plaster head with gelatin, latex scraps, wax, stringy material, and leftover hamburger meat. Special effects supervisor Gary Zeller then hid behind the dummy and blasted it with a shotgun, creating one of horror's most famous practical effects, the head explosion. That's really cool to learn how much practicality went into this practical effect. It's so cool. Oh my gosh, I love that. Fun fact number 2. Because of strict Canadian tax incentive deadlines, production had to start before the screenplay was complete. Cronenberg was reportedly writing new pages between 4 and 7 a.m. almost every morning while the film was already shooting, later calling it the most frustrating production of his career. Yeah, I'd imagine because he wrote from 4 to 7 a.m., had probably a full day of shooting, and then maybe slept a little bit and did it all over again. Fun fact number 3. One of the movie's very first shooting days, a truck driver watching the production became distracted and collided with a car, tragically killing 2 women. Jeez. Cronenberg later described it as the worst first day he had ever experienced on a film set. Yeah, I'd imagine that would very much ruin your day. Fun fact number 4. Cronenberg originally intended for the exploding head sequence to be the film's opening scene. However, preview audiences were so shocked by the effect that they struggled to focus on the story afterward. He moved the sequence later into the film, where it became an unforgettable early turning point instead. And let me tell you, this really was a turning point in the movie, because you get Cameron Vale's whole backstory, not whole backstory, like storyline first, and then when you get to the head explosion, you get Revik's storyline added to it. And so to me, I do actually enjoy the fact that we got that head explosion a little later. I think it made a little bit more sense when watching the movie as the audience. But I would like to be able to experience what it would look like if the head explosion scene was the very first thing we saw. How would that change the movie that we're watching? That would be very interesting. Fun fact number 5. The effects crew prepared 4 prosthetic heads in case the gag failed. Ironically, the very first take was the one used in the finished film. Confident they had already nailed it, Cronenberg skipped watching the remaining attempts and reportedly went back to his trailer for a nap. As he should. That guy was probably freaking exhausted. And of course, we now have Scarometer. That meters as you get scared. Scarometer. That meters as you get scared. Okay, so a lot of the stuff that we see on screen in this movie is scary, but to me, the story is the showcase here. The practical effects are a close second, though, I will say. So I would give this movie a 9 point. Okay, I'm gonna give it a 10. I'm gonna give it a 10 because you have the practical effects, you have the story, you have the acting, you have the score to all come together and really make something that is pure art, is so amazing, and something that makes me proud to be a horror movie watcher. I think it is so cool and really cemented Cronenberg as one of him and Eli Roth, I think, are my absolute favorite horror movie directors. So I love that aspect of this movie, and I love the fact that we have this in our histories, and it's so cool. Well, folks, thank you all for joining me this spooky evening. And just a little teaser for next week, we are going to have a guest, because something that is coming up called the Hauntmare Expo, and your girl is doing her first set of panels there. So I am going to be pairing up with Manny from Entertainment Escape, another show here we do on our app, and we're going to be hosting all of the panels for Hauntmare. So that's 3 on Saturday and 2 on Sunday. So please go to hauntmare.com, buy your tickets, and if you'd like, come see me doing some panels with some very famous horror movie stars. And I will tell you, Eileen Dietz is probably going to be one of my favorites. And Scream. Scream, 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 Scream. I'm so excited. So for more information on that, go visit hauntmareexpo.com. Go follow them on Instagram. And stay tuned for some fun. Thank you all for watching, folks. Have a wonderful evening. And remember, don't split up and don't go into the basement. Bye.